Evening all. Tonight we've got Tom's Epiphone Dot and a nice big 335, and we've got a setup to do on it. Action's very high at the moment. It's pretty mucky. We've got loose jack socket. We've got a nice Gibson 490 pickup to go in there in the neck position. See if we can reach all the way back. New bridge, adjustable Tusq nut, and a good clean. But everything about this should be absolutely good and responsive. And I'm not going to say it'll be dead easy, because every time I say anything like that, it never is. So we got the genuine Grovers on there. Scarf joint on the neck, perfectly good joint in my book. Yeah, big semi-acoustic, got a center block and hollow sides, but you know, it's definitely, you're in your John Lennon kind of mode. I just check these just to be on the safe side, because occasionally you find them wired up differently from that. We've got the switches a bit rotated. So the hardest part of all of this job is going to be the pickup change. I'm saying that like as if I'm blighting the whole thing before I even get started. But in my experience, it's usually a little bit more difficult than it needs to be. Well, certainly more difficult than it needs to be. Whoever kind of thought of these guitars, it was a good idea to put all the electrics in through the F hole or the pickup holes. I think needed their head examining, but anyway. So we've got that to work with. Now, the problem, what am I going to say? I don't know why I'm doing this way around. I don't think I am doing this way around. I want to do the setup, and I want to do it with the old strings on, obviously, the sacrificial strings. So I think I would make more sense to leave the electronics until the midpoint. So I'm going to do that. So sorry about that change of direction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my adjustable Tusq nut, and we're going to prep it ready for this here guitar. I've got to put in an order, because that's really out of adjustable Tusq nuts. Being not too cold tonight. It's all changed for some reason. So yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin with removing the truss rod cover, and then we'll remove the original nut. Now with the Epiphones, my experience is the nut comes off really well. It's a plastic, hard black plastic nut. Comes off without tearing off loads of headstock finish, which is a good thing. So it's usually very cooperative in that sense. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by undoing the strings, slacking them off, getting them out of the way. They're pretty filthy, but they'll be good for the fret leveling part of the deal. There we go. So as I take the strings off, I can get a good look at the frets, and they're a little bit warm, but they're nothing bad, nothing too bad about it. So we get straight into this by tapping off the original plastic nut. It's well glued on, but nothing too difficult to overcome. Just have a look at how it's seated. Well, it's actually not in a recess. I think it's just been glued on quite strongly. So I don't know if we've got a little lever we can use to just hoik it from there, give it a bit of a persuasion. Just need a piece of soft plastic. There we go. Let's give it a little leverage like so. It'll probably come off and go flying. Well, it's sort of moving, but it's now if it's had too much glue on the bottom, we could find ourselves in a situation where it pulls off a fair bit of the wood, and I can feel it's really stuck down over here. So I'm going to just try and give it a little friendly tap in this direction, but if it doesn't give up the ghost quickly, there's a little snick sound. That should be it. Yeah, it's got quite a lot of glue in there, but it's come away in good shape, so we can clean up that glue without a problem. If you know the guitar, the model, and you know that it's not going to present you with major problems, then you can do that sort of, you can tap like that with confidence. But some models or some guitar brands, like Vintage and Harley Benton, they tend to spray the nut into place, and so it ends up glued in, inverted commas, into a sort of cocoon of finish, and it's usually the headstock finish that's kind of basically built up over the back edge of the there's a lot of glue on here though, on the back edge of the nut, and that is what tends to try and pull away. So it goes up the side of the back of the nut there, and as it comes away it tries to peel off the headstock veneer or the headstock finish. So I'm just going to give this a little scrape just to remove the obvious stuff. It's quite a bit of glue that's been left behind. We don't have to get it all off. All we're looking for really is a decent flat base, and so we'll end up with a base that, or a fit, and actually it's not a bad fit right from the off. Yeah, actually it's very good. So what we're going to do, as with all of these things, I'm just going to bring up a bit of this, and I'm going to use a bit of sandpaper to sand flat the little feet on the adjustable nut grub screws, and this little bar is a bit easier than getting out the full-size sanding block. But once we get that flattened out, it sort of spreads out the loading on the nut base, which is strengthened by a bit of brass. You might be able to see in a second. Okay, let's get this end flattened. Come on. Sort of, that will do. Right, so that will now fit in there, and we know we're facing forward. Now the idea with this little adjustable nut is we want to get it in there, and we want it to sit basically with the strings. When they're on, we want the strings to sit on the first fret. So what I'll do is just give it a test now, and it may be that we don't even need any what I'll do before I load the strings back in, I think I'll just mark up the frets so that we're kind of ready to go with the fret leveling. Pretty mucky, but we'll clean up as we go along. But there's no point doing a big cleanup just now because we have got some dust to be making. So as I'm marking these frets up, I can also feel with the pen if there are any nicks or problems on the fret surfaces, which there aren't. They're all in good shape. Like I say, a little bit of wear down by the nut end of things. So then we drop our strings into place and get ready to tension up. And because it's an adjustable nut and because it's loose anyway, I've just dropped it in there, I'm going to tighten up the D and the G first. Okay, so just looking at the first fret action here, it's a little high. So what I would want to do, so we might as well get it done while we're at it. We'll slack these off again. We'll take this off, and we'll take off about 0.2 of a millimeter. And hopefully these strings will continue to behave while we prep the nut. So I just move a few things out of the way. If you're still with me, get up the big cutting board. Okay, so you can probably see what I'm doing over there. Zoom out a bit. So the idea is I'm going to do two things. I'm going to take down some of the height because we want a millimeter down, and I'm also going to, actually I was going to clean up the face of that. I might just do it a tiny bit, but it's, as it stands, it's pretty good, so we may not have to. A sensible way of keeping track of what I'm removing is to start with a measurement in two places, so I know on the treble side with my caliper into the, as far as it will go into the high E slot, we've got 7.6. So if I just mark it up, what I'll do is I'll get rid of some of these sketchings. That's this, that can go. That can go. I say 7.6, there it is. Now I tend to draw it on the board so I see what I'm looking at. That's the nut. 7.6, and then on the base side I'll do the same. 7.6, that's interesting. It's very rare that that's the same. 7.6, 7.6, or 7.5 actually. Okay, so I'm going to take off 0.2 mils. Yep. So I'm going to go to 7.4 and 7.3 as measured. So the main thing now is to use the sandpaper here to take down this plastic base. It's printer, 3D printer plastic, so it's I don't know what the way to describe it is. It's not the dustiest, most easily sandable substance, I have to say. It's not ideal for that, but it will get there. But it's a little bit of a shaggy dog affair. Now I'm going to just check it on here for its angle and everything. It's not too bad. I'm going to do a tiny bit more. I'm leaning it a bit to the front because I think I'm going to rock backwards to carry on the way I was going. Okay, and then I'm sort of just cleaning up. It has this sort of coils of, or little curls of plastic that come away, but that's fine. Okay, so that the simple thing to do then is to again prop it back in. I could measure it, but I could just go back in and check like this. And the beauty of this is because it's adjustable. If it ends up that the string sits right on the thing on the first fret straight away, that's actually not a problem. You can't really say it's overcut. In fact, it's almost perfect as it is. So what I'm going to do to keep true to my principles, I'm going to take a little tiny bit more just to get it so that those strings are sitting right on. But like I'm saying, I can afford to go a tiny bit past that. Not that I want to, but I've got a fair bit of upward movement possible courtesy of the grub screws. Okay, that feels about right. Need to use thinner sandpaper now. A couple of months' time I've got to do a big order, a sort of yearly order of all my sandpapery type stuff, because I have pretty much used it all up. Getting very near the bottom of that particular barrel. So once you cut into this stuff, you can sort of see the structure of the 3D printing, the sort of way the filament is laid down or printed out, however you might describe it. But anyway, it's very effective, and these were done for me by a very kind gentleman who I've kind of lost touch with a bit, and I could really do with catching up with him again. Right, so let's go back with the strings. Now I think I'm going to find that the high strings sit on there probably better than the low strings, so let's just get it pinned down for a minute, and it's going to sit right in the shelf where it needs to sit. Right, so that's just touching the first fret now, which is great. So is that, as you can hear, and that, and that. Okay, so that means we're where we want to be to start that nut off, or to start using it. So, and we are just a tiny bit. Actually, what we've got is a little discrepancy, so I think I know I'm fiddling about here, but let's just take down this bass side a tiny bit more, so we're at the same start point. Just a couple of more minutes doing this. Like I say, I can afford to go a little past the mark anyway on the height, because I can always bring it back up. But what I want is to get this bass side a bit more, a bit lower. So I'm kind of putting a load of pressure down on the just on the bass side really, but doing the whole bass, so it should be still keeping it flat. A busy day already today. I finished off a couple of guitars that I've set up here. One of them was Sunny 3, the beautiful Indonesian made custom for Andrew up in Edinburgh, which got broken before Christmas, and which I had to repair, and it's taken until now to do the repair, do the spraying, and get it all have the finish cure and fully cure and settle. And now yesterday it was a good day to refit the hardware and get it prepped and ready to go. So that will be leaving on Monday. also completed Dave's Peerless Retromatic, keep calling it Rotomatic, that's somebody else's guitar, and at the same time as doing some True Oil for Nick in the States, not the YouTuber Nick in the States, but a customer of mine, Nick, his custom build, a little mini Strat that I'm making. So I got the neck two coats of True Oil on that, and then went out and had a bit of a practice with the chaps in the band. Okay, we're on the deck on all of the strings, which is good. So just going to tighten that up a bit. What I'm next going to do is set the overall playing action at the far side. Oh, I need to keep these, put them in the bag. They're coming home with me. Stay there. Stay. So what I'm just going to do is set the ideal target action. So it's a lot higher right now, and that suggests that there are probably some problems with uneven frets lurking under there. Let's take it down as far as it will go to begin with and see what we've got. Come up from there. Well, we come up to 1.25 and 1.2-ish. So we'll come up a tiny bit on the bass side, and we'll stop at 150 on the bass. Yeah, that's about right. What I'll also just have a look at now is, we'll come to that when we do the pickup change. So now we've got correct height here, as at the last fret, as I call it. Now we're going to raise up the nut to give us what I always aim for in this situation, and that is going to be the least amount of height so that we can play. So that's what's nice about this type of nut. So we basically wind in the adjustable part and we lift off and we get a playing note. And there we are. That should do for the starters. Keep this little key. Now I want to get the tuning fork, get it into tune. Okay, so now we have the action set at this end. I'll just double check it now. We've got it under, right now it's under load at full pitch. It's a little bit higher than it should be. Let's drop it down a bit. I want 150 on the lower E and 125 on the high E, which is there. So we're nearly in tune. Now I think I've got a little bit too high as we stand on the bass side of here, but it's a tiny fraction that we can adjust, like so. I'll do fine for now. So again, I'll just tune it one more time and then we'll check the relief. Feels good. Right, checking the relief quite a bit. So we can make this feel flatter by removing some of this relief, and the watchword that I go work with is you only need a tiny bit more than none. So if we've got a tad too much, we go in here with a 4mm key on this one and we tighten. That's about 10 degrees, and then we go 15 degrees tight, and that flattens the neck out slightly. Okay, so again we'll check the relief by holding down the low E string on the first and the last frets together, and we basically check the space between the bottom of the string and the top of the fret at about the 8th fret or 7th or 8th fret. Well, this will be the 7th fret, about halfway between these 2 points. And there should be a tiny gap. That's about as much as I would like. I think I'll leave it as is, it feels nice. And so, to make sure that we've got all the notes and bends, choke-free notes and bends, I'm going to do, and to clear up this wear down here, we're going to use the banana fret leveling method. And you'll notice at this point I haven't put on the new bridge. Everything looks fine, except we may be faced with a height issue if this new bridge is slightly taller. It may restrict how low we can set it, but I'll come to that in a minute. We can always take some metal off the underside of the new bridge if necessary. Basically grind it off. So I'm going to use my banana leveling file, and I'm going to calibrate this so that we basically make a 3-point sample reproduction of the neck relief, and in a sense the real neck is imperfect. Think of it as an imperfect structure with lots of little microscopic ups and downs, and as I'm bending this one following the 3 sample points, I'm making a smoother curve that sort of broadly mimics the curve of this neck, only a little smoother. And for some of you who've never seen this method before, you might be starting to realize that a sort of perfect interpretation of this curve now being used with the neck, with the strings on and the neck under load, now being that perfect curve now being used as a leveling beam onto the imperfect curve, which might suggest that if you've got a load of hills and valleys on your actual neck, this imperfect curve, and I can promise you it does under load, because that's what the wood of the neck does, it bunches in interesting and individual idiosyncratic ways, shall we say. So what we're doing now is we're keeping the guitar more or less loaded in the same tension as when you have it, when you're playing it. And what I can show you straight away, this is a sort of diagnostic first pass, you could think of it as. Straight away, we have cutting, no cutting. So we've gone from a, let's call this median, low, median, high, cutting more, not cutting at all, low again, median, low, not cutting, so a low block of about 5 low ones, median, low, median. So we've got quite a few distinct little hills and valleys, and the great thing about this fret leveling method is that it is able to tame out those little hills and valleys, because it's imposing the ideal curve onto the tops of those hills and basically bringing them down a little, so that the distance between the valleys, the low points of the valleys, and the tops of these peaks is not as great as it once was. Now I'm kind of putting a little bit more pressure on this last section here, because I know that it's got quite a lot of unevenness up there. Now the fact that I stopped there and you might be thinking, how much metal has that taken off? And I know from experience, 10 years of experience using this method, I know instinctively that's a very small amount of fret metal taken away, barely anything. I've got a beautifully low action. Now I can hear individual notes. Perfect. A little bit of, a couple of little dings on here which we'll get rid of. So it's sounding good so far. Now we move across to the B track, or move closer to me on the B track, and we do the same calibration on the B track to smooth out the hills on the B, and also to take away any dings and chips which we can feel, which I just felt there, so it's a good reason for doing the leveling. Now when you're doing this, you sort of, where you had the highs and lows before, in some ways you can expect to see that pattern continue a little bit. It would be unusual if it didn't. So I can still see we've got quite a low spot there. Everything else is evening out a bit. We've got a low spot there and a low spot there, but it's not as pronounced as it was on the E. So as we come into the middle, it's easing off, which is good. So the general pattern has stayed the same, but the severity of it has changed. And these are small amounts that you wouldn't be able to see with your naked eye. Okay, the little chip is gone. Right, so now we come on to the G. I'm going to recalibrate for the G track because it's a bit further in, and interesting is that on some guitars where you might have some choke outs when you're bending the high E string across the neck on some, with a very low action and some quite big bends, wherever you've got choke out, it's often the B track, or the slight unevenness in the B track can be what catches the high E string and chokes it out. So at this point, doing the G track is often where you clear up any choking notes. When specifically, when I mean choking, when you're bending, when you're bending usually the high E and sometimes the B. So the G is the sort of bending, the zone of clearing up bending chokes, like so. Okay, so now I can again see, I'm doing it by experience, still low here. There's definitely a dip. When I first started doing this years and years and years ago, I used to think that the differences in the evenness or the relative levelness of the frets was something to do with the way somebody had pressed the frets in. You know, perhaps they had hit too hard on these two so that they seemed lower than the others. But it's in the ensuing years, I've come to realize that it's much more about the way this particular unique neck bends, bunches under longitudinal compression caused by the string loading, and that's kind of interesting because it means that, you know, every single neck will have its own response to the loading of the strings, and realistically, no two are ever the same. You won't always get Epiphones with a dip here and a dip right up there. It's just it's just a unique characteristic of the wood and its grain and how much moisture is in it and the structure of it and so on. Very, very unique. And I think the other thing is it made me realize that I always used to, when I refret, in the first few years, I would kind of wonder why it was that I would only get 1 in 20 or so refrets that felt like I could play straight away. And I used to think that was I'd done it right, 1 in 25 goes. You know, meaning that 24 other times I'd done it wrong and been, I don't know, less than perfect in my fretting. But actually, what I realised over the time is that I fretted very similarly the same each time. But what was changing and made the difference in those 1 in 25 ratio is that what was changing each time was just purely the patterns of unevenness in the frets caused by the compression. So no matter how brilliantly anyone frets, you almost can never go straight, but you can play if you have a tiny bit higher action. That's the truth. But if you're going for a nice similar target every time for your ideal low playing action, then you're going to find that you're going to need to level out those hills and valleys. And so I used to say way back in the beginning that all guitars have uneven frets. And probably a more accurate statement that I think would explain the situation better would be to say that under string loading, all fingerboards bunch in unique and different ways, resulting in a unique pattern of high and low frets for that particular guitar. And I think that's the more accurate way of saying it. A tiny bit more in that area there. I think it's pretty good, but I'm just challenging myself a fraction. So yeah, that was my newer definition, or my newer assessment of why most guitars need some fret work. As I say, not because of the carelessness of the fretting, but because of the idiosyncratic behaviour of the wood in the neck and the fingerboard under load. And I think when I first started, I would have imagined that might account for, I don't know, maximum 10% accuracy difference between this method, doing it the way I'm doing it now, and the old-fashioned neck strings off, neck flat method, using a fret rocker. And actually, I started out thinking it was probably a 5% improvement, and so the accuracy was never anyway the principal reason I would give for doing it. There are other reasons why I think it's better to do it this way, not least because it protects or preserves more fret metal, because since we've got the strings on, I can stop leveling at exactly the point where I'm satisfied with the way this action I've set plays. So that's its true benefit. But actually, I found since that because of the significance of this bunching and the hills and valleys business, it's actually probably a greater percentage improvement by doing it this way, because you're basically leveling with the effects of the compression in play already. See, this one here is low here and low here, and sort of highish in the middle, so it's interesting. This one's okay here, but it's low on this side. So again, it's the behavior of the wood that's not even the same on both sides of this fingerboard. How about that? Sounds great. I'm happy with that. I know from experience that's good. So I'm stopping that one right there, putting my bits and bobs. You see, it's a messy business. It's a mucky business. And what I'll do now, well, we're happy with that, the nut's good. Let's, before we get into sorting out the electric part and all the other bits, let us just change the bridge. Put the new bridge on and make sure that we can get the basic height set that we want. Because otherwise we're going to end up with some, like I said, some filing and carving and gouging or whatever. So let's see. Now sometimes on these older guitars you might find that your modern replacement bridge, whoop, that's knackered, there goes one of the blocks. You may find that sometimes the what was I going to say? Oh, the posts are slightly closer or further apart. So this, I think this may be a slightly taller beastie. So these usually come pretty well intonated, the positions. So that's always usually a bonus. I've got a funny feeling about this bridge. Yeah, the holes are slightly different position. Can you believe that? Maybe you can just squeeze them on. So I'm just looking at this now, and I've got a feeling that this is in fact nickel, which is a hilarious thing because I was just thinking about all the 339s that I've done this setup on, and they all had nickel stuff. Now I'm getting completely grimy here, so at the moment this is bugging me because it's so filthy. Yeah, I think we've got a nickel thing. I'm going to have to order. That's no good because Tom's coming on Sunday. Blimey, that's not fair, is it? Chrome, nickel, gadzooks. Well, the problem is anyway with this one, whatever one we use, I would have to drill this out. So I think, for the sake of not going insane, see, this is currently, the intonation's all over the place at the moment here. I have no idea why it's so bad. Let's just leave this in for a minute, and we'll, these little saddles are free range. They're in danger of falling out as soon as I kind of so much as look at them. But I'm going to try and set this up in a pattern that should be about right, and then we'll check the intonation again. Bloody, I'm such a divot. What day are we on? Friday night. I might be able to put Tom off and get the nickel one in time, but the problem is I have to be up here to do it because I'll have to slightly over drill it, because the original posts on these things were slightly closer together than they are on modern replacements. So how about that? You wouldn't think so to look at it, but it really is the case. Okay, nasty nickel. I should keep a bleeding nickel spare roller bridge in stock, because I should be aware that I'm always going to need one. I can't even get that on properly. It's not so great having these things loose, honestly. One of these days you take the strings off and they'll fall off, and that will be the end of it. They'll disappear. Still, let's just right, so actually, well, I don't need to put that back on just now, because what are we going to do? I'm going to do the fret work, and then I'm going to do, right, so let's get these strings off, and we'll take the nut off for the time being. Oh well, let's put the nut on while we've got the strings. That's a good idea. Forgive me for mumbling to myself. And I mumble to myself. What a wonderful world. I will just attempt to put pressure on here in the middle. Thank you. Just to hold it down. Oh lordy. So I think what I'll need to do is I will need to get a, come on please, I will need to get a signal up and get an order in Northwest Guitars nickel thing. Right, so let me go after that, and what will I be able to do? I might have to do it on this one. So, okay. I'll hold off for a few minutes while I get these other things done. Also means right now I can get a bit of this cleaned up with my Dunlop cleaning up stuff. It's really filthy. So I'm going to need to wash my hands good and proper shortly. Right. Oh look, a nickel stop bar. Right, so we've got an absolutely filthy top here. So let's get a slightly different angle and let's look while I clean it up. So this is dodgy because we're in danger of losing all the bits. Oh god, this is absolutely filthy. So I can just get rid of most of the dusty grunge in one go. Yes. I don't need to worry about any of the heights or anything because I can reset that at the end. Just take those out for the time being. Give us as little rattlings as we need, as we can get away with. Yes. I don't know how many times I've been caught out with the chrome instead of nickel situation, which is very silly because I should just have it stacked in my brain that if it's an Epiphone of any kind, I should be absolutely certain that it's not nickel, or that it is nickel, before I go any further. I'll need the phone that I'm recording on, I think, to get an order off. I don't know if I got enough signal anyway, but okay, let's give this a Dunlop polishy thing. I don't know what this is. Guitar polish and cleaner. It seems to do all right, actually. I was a bit surprised. Not sure it'll do so great on the chrome. We'll get change over on the neck one, but I think the bridge one might have to sort of retain its slightly corroded look. But it's only cosmetic, so it's nothing to, it doesn't affect the operation in any way. So I think with something like this, this cloth is probably good for the bin once I've got some of the grime off. So as you probably can guess, getting a change of any pickups or any electrical components done on a guitar, semi-hollow guitar like this, can be an absolute ball buster, to use a crude expression, but we shall see. All right, so that's a sort of a bit of a quick hygienic cleanup. What I'm going to do now while we're here, and I've got you here, is we're going to mark up the frets that we have leveled and mark them up with the thingy Sharpie big marker, Pentel marker, and this is so that I can keep track of what's happening when I'm recrowning the frets that I've just leveled. And once I've done that, I will clean up, give the whole fingerboard and the frets a clean at the same time, and after that it'll be a matter of polishing out the frets. Now what do I need a second? I need a wire cutter, side cutters. Just going to cut these off right here because I don't want to be trying to drag, oh, you can't really, can you see? Yes, I don't want to be dragging the coily bits through the stop bar. It just makes life difficult. So if I cut it here like so, I can just slip all those bits out and bin them safely-ish, like so. Coiling up the other ones as much as possible. Right, okay, so for this I'm going to need my trusty StewMac crowning file, which is here, and probably want to do this on there, flattish. Okay, put my hardware out of the way. Bloody nickel Epiphone. Yeah, so here we go. I'm going to use medium side of this and basically using it to round off the flat edges of the leveled frets. There's a very nifty little concave tool, and that's all it requires. There'll be a couple that take a bit more time, depending on having had a bit more leveling, but more or less, when you go through with the leveling like this, it reconfirms how relatively little metal I took in this process. So that's again something that you pick up with experience of using this method. You'll know straight away if you find yourself labouring for quite some time on a single fret or on all the frets. You know that you've taken a lot of material away to get where you needed to get. And sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes there's no choice. If you want level frets, you have to work with whatever you're given. Sometimes when you do the leveling, the frets will appear to flatten out really quickly, and for a newcomer to the method, it can be quite scary. You think you've suddenly half killed the frets. And what you have to know in that situation, you have to have the experience to be able to recognise, is that you didn't flatten the fret. It was already flattened. Somebody else before you has levelled it, and you've just kind of you've just covered it in black marker and then gone over it with a levelling beam, and of course it's picked up or highlighted the flat spot that was already on there, and added a little bit to it, but nothing like as much as was created in the first place. So it often shows up where someone else has done some hammering or has levelled the frets quite hard, but not the case on this one. This is in good shape and it's just being played and enjoyed. Okay, so we're coming near the end, and then once we've done this, we'll clean everything up take the whole of the fingerboard off just to protect the wood. Some people do all of the sanding and polishing of the frets straight over the rosewood. It's always been my way to cover it off. Maybe it's not totally essential for a rosewood type of finish fingerboard, but I don't know. I'd rather do that than end up kind of putting dull scratching all over the wood. Okay, so just about coming up to the end. There we are. That's the recrowning done. And like I say, while I'm at it, let's get another cloth that we can sacrifice to the gods of filthy cloths. And let's chuck some more Dunlop and see if this cuts through all that grime. So we've done the leveling, we've done the recrowning. Now I'm looking to, it doesn't really, it's not very good at what I wanted it for this time. So I was hoping to cut through some of the grease and stuff on the fretboard, but what that's probably going to require is some naphtha to do it. So I've got loads of old rags, so let's get some naphtha going. And that helps me to get the grease, a lot of the grease gone, but it also takes off the marker pen. Obviously leaves it on the cloth, which is what we want. So that's levelled and recrowned. Like I say, next thing I will put masking tape all the way up the neck, and then I'll be ready to sand and polish that out, which I'll probably do off camera because it's boring and noisy. I'll probably do it first and then get on with the pickup change after I've done the polishing, because the polishing's sort of the pain in the backside process, really. It's just kind of hard work with no joy. Now when you've got a guitar like this that's started out pretty old and not old, pretty grimy, I always like to remove the tuners, just because they are, the headstock will never clean up without removing those tuners. So I will start on the other side, and I will take out the tuner screws. Now once I've done this, once I've cleaned this headstock, I will stop the camera. I will go off and see if I can use the phone that's recording to order a nickel version of this blasted bridge, and then check in with Tom for a slightly delayed pickup whilst kicking myself, because I can change the bridge over at home. That's the good part. But I do need to have a drill at home. So if it comes on, if I order it and it comes on the Sunday, I still need to have drill bits to just widen the posts. These are a little bit grimy. I don't think I'm going to get a very easy cleanup on them because they're a little tarnished, and they've got some rust spots as well. And it will take me from now until kingdom come to try and clean them up. So I'm just gonna, for the time being, I'll give them a going over with some naphtha just to clean off any obvious surface grime and get them a little bit cleaner, but it's not going to be a full tuner cleanup restoration. It'll just look a little bit tidier and cleaner, but getting the tuners off is just more important from the cleanup point of view. So you can get some naphtha and your cloth in on a flat surface where you can never really get between the tuners when they're still on. So this gives me access to the paintwork in a nice sort of flat plane, and then I can give it a rub down, and lo and behold, it looks a heck of a lot better than it did before. So as you can see, we're getting there to the point where everything will be clean before too long. Again, over here, a good cleanup. Just avoiding the quality control mark a little bit, otherwise this naphtha is very good at degreasing such stickers and pulling them off. So unless we want to lose it, we'll just avoid it a little bit. And while I'm at it, down this end, we've got the horns down here, and I've got a filthy rag now with lots of naphtha on it, so I might as well keep it covered in that and give it a sort of good clean round inside the hard to access bits, like so, right around the edges. And then, you know, I know I've got a pretty much clean beastie. It feels and looks a lot better. And then while I'm at it, I go over the back of it as well. I could be using the Dunlop stuff on this big open flat paint, you know, clear finish surface, but this naphtha stuff works well, as good as can be on this type of finish. Right, so again, a mucky thing. I can just wipe my fingers a bit clean. So I'll keep the naphtha here because I'll use it to clean up the tuner buttons a bit, but I'll do that off camera. So everything's good. There's a little crack on the back of the neck here. It's only the finish, nothing serious. Okay, so if you can see, yeah, looking and smelling a lot cleaner. I mean, I do have some. No, we're changing the pickups out, so I'm going to use a tiny bit of remnants of what's this stuff, Auto Sol, and see if it will just get rid of some of the corrosion on these pickups. Now I'm changing this neck one, hence I'm starting with that one first, because sometimes if the pickups are really thinly chromed, they can give way, the finish can come off, or through nickel, the plating is very thin, it can come away. So I think I could probably clean that one up now, improve it without worrying about removing the nickel finish. So let's put that on there. Now, always with these, if I'm going to do some pickup cleaning, I might as well hoist the pickup as far out of its shell as possible, which takes a while to get it out. Right here. So then you can basically get in there a bit. And as long as you get a bit further down than it was before, then when you put it back down in, if you get my drift, the really grimy bits will be left at the bottom, out of sight. I mean, that's doing this without dismantling the whole pickup for the time being. Now, looking at this, it's pretty tough, this corrosion, so I don't really know how much of a difference this is going to make. I'm not even sure we're going to get it all off. Typical what happens with chrome or nickel is it sort of builds, this corrosion starts to take hold, and it's then permanently in place, and you can get a bit of a shine up but around it, but you can't get rid of these little granules of corrosion. So that's about as good as it's going to be. And we can go down, lower it down, hopefully not too much so that the spring pops out and you have to go fishing inside. Don't want that. Okay. But just before I go then, a couple of little things. Right, so just a thought up front. Difficulty is, if I need to get this out to hook up the new pickup wire, which I will do, then usually I have to take out this one as well, and that means I have to get both of those back in when the time comes. So just as a quick thrill example, let's go loosen that one and loosen that one. Now this is close enough that if the worst comes to the worst, I can get my finger in and push this back up through, which is great. Not always the case on some guitars. The pots are too far away from the holes, and that can become an absolute pain. The other thing about doing any movement of electrical parts like this is that electrics are by definition very delicate, and so the last thing I want to be doing, but I have to be doing, is hoiking electrical components round and about inside of this guitar. So as I come round, you see I can probably hoik this one out quite nicely. But what I've got to figure out is where my pickup goes. So let's start with the neck pickup, so we'll see what's what. This is corroded in here, so I've got to be careful. There's a very, I might want to replace these. These have got water damage, so they're rusty. I think we should replace them. Yeah, let's do that, shall we? You can see all right? Yeah, water damage, or moisture damage, I should say. They're all rusty, and you can see there's a bit of rust and stuff in here, but this should be all right. So I'm going to have to remove the pickup ring anyway on this one to reuse it with the new pickup. Well, let's just identify the what's it first. Now the problem is always the slight challenge is what way do they wire this. So this wire is going through here, and is it going, it's got to go to the pickups first. That's no, it doesn't have to go to the pickup. See, with a simple 2-wire thing, it could go to the switch first. Blah. Well, I think we probably need to get this loosened off. So I've gone ahead into the thing I wasn't going to go ahead into, but that's okay. So yeah, that's a conundrum. Normally in a Les Paul or something, the feed from pickups go to the pots, and then from the pots to the switch. But there's no reason why this couldn't, the signal from the pickups couldn't go to the switch first and then onwards to the pots. Right, so here we have, I guess that's what it's going to be. It's going to come through. I suspect it's going to come through. I can even see where it is. Forgive me. I got a horrible feeling that's coming into the switch as suspected. Or is it coming into the red one to the neck volume? The blue one is not coming in. So I think we're going to have to believe that it's coming into the only place it can join up really is the switch. And again, this switch is close enough to the F hole to be reasonably accessible, but as with all these things, I think what I'm going to try and do is get these things a little bit back where I'd want them first. There's no point having them spinning around unnecessarily. So if I thought the pickup would go straight to that, but it doesn't. So rather than have 3 loose things flopping about in here, I'm going to attempt, this is where it gets difficult, going to attempt to not very photogenic bit of pastime this. So this is where you really need to have wires attached to things to even get this up through. Even though it's close enough, I can't get this up to the hole without there being some sort of wire pulling at it. I might be able to get it to come close to it. Pain in the what's it. So I haven't prepared any things for this. Like I said, it's not the best, not the most photogenic little thing to do. I don't know, might be able to. Yeah, so what you just don't want to get wires pushed around too much, because there you go. So we can get a one up through here right now. Hold it in place. That's it. Get that one was not too much of a fight. So this is really more than anything just to get this nicely out, safely out of trouble, out of harm's way. Simply because we don't want movement, lots of movement of stuff. Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. So if it's not on those pots, then it must be on the switch. Hence the need to have it all tidied up out of the way first. Okay, so now we've got those tidied up, and we don't like the sound of that. Pardon me a second. So we're pushing down to get the switch out. We need to get the switch out, but sometimes the switch doesn't come out unless you slacken off the 2 pots sort of attached to it. So first of all, we might take off the little plastic knobble, because that's an extra bit to have to push down. And let's see what we can hoist. Come on, how'd you come? So, well, how about that? So bizarrely, this doesn't go to the switch. It must go first of all to the neck volume, and somehow it goes, the other one goes round. The bridge one is a black one. I can't even see where that goes. Can you believe it? What can you see? I don't know. Oh boy, do I dislike this? So that appears, or doesn't appear, to even go. So it looks like this particular red wire has to go to the neck volume. Did I say I hated this business of semi-acoustic guitars? Well, I do. In my experience, you get all of this just about done sometimes, and then before you know what happens, you've accidentally broken a connection inside and nothing works, and you're having to start from scratch all over again. I hate that, you can imagine. Okay, so do I have any free movement of this? So it's the red one. I think I'm just going to tack this bridge one back in for a minute so it's not rolling about, if I can. Sort of would like to do that to the neck one as well, but so I have very little in the way of good visibility on this, and I can see, right, I can see there's just too much reflection as well, which doesn't help. Oh boy, do I despise this this job. Why did I say I have to do it? Okay, you come out from under there so we're not pulling at that too tightly. And look how close a fit that is. Okay, so we've got the switch, we've got the pickup. Pickup comes to there. Appears to go into the end one and then back out. Right. Right, neck. Ready? Pull, 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 pull. Okay. So we're going to go in with basically a braided wire, and these are only 2 coil anyway, so that's not so bad. We've got to get in underneath this bridge one, so we're going to have to take this out again. Now we're in a slightly better viewing position actually. So that's got to come out there, stay there. I've got to trust which is which. How can I see these things? Well, this has to be, I'm going to take a risk and cut the blue wire. Thank you. Ready? Yeah. Okay. Now I've got to quickly undo the thingy. I'm missing a thingy. Thank you. Gonna set up the. Oh, hang on a minute. This has got. Oh God. Has it got room for this? Yes, it does. Phew. It's got the extreme long legs. So I'm just taking apart the old casing. Hopefully these same ones will work on this Gibson pickup. I hope. Let us pray and try. Spring, please. Springs. Oh yes, just about, probably, possibly. Please fit. Something. Oh, gee whiz. This doesn't want to play ball. Snoopy, hang on. I don't even know where I was going now. Come on, Samuel. That's to the outside. Ow. That's to the outside. To the outside. To the outside. Now, first of all, I don't even know if this is going to fit. This screw will fit here. Well, there's a good start. That doesn't fit. So we've got two large... Oh dear. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Did I tell you how much I don't like this particular undertaking? Now I'm going to have to try and divine from a massive pile of bits, try and find something that will do the job on this Hure Gibson. Okay, that will do there, probably. It's quite a long one, very long one. Got anything else? Oh, warp. No, 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 no. Small, very small. Similar size. Shut up. Too long. Let's try this one for fit. Yeah, probably. There's that one and that one. Let's see if there's anything else floating about in here. I have to pick all of these up in a minute and put them all away again. I hope you understand. In fact, I don't think I've got anything else that's a better shape or size than that. Oh, perhaps this one. And is that one as long? No, that's not right. This one is as long as that one. That could be better actually. Right, what are we doing? We're looking on the outside. On the outside. No, that's the old one. Silly me. That's the Gibson. That's going that way. That's the long one. That's the long spring. This whole business here is such an unbelievable faff. I can't believe that in the 21st century we're still playing this game of trying to hold little screws and springs in line with a piece of threaded soft steel, but we are. Okay, I think that will do. Oh no, where was I? Oh yes, I was back to the right, that's pushing backwards, that's going forwards. Right, so we are now coming through here, through here, in there. Oh, you can't even see it. I'm terribly sorry. We've dragged that up through there, and if you remember, this lived in, it shared a little tubey, tunnely thing here, but I don't think it wants to go through. It's like it's too crunchy and not straight enough. Well, we'll see. Come along through here. Doesn't really matter if it doesn't go. I'll probably just make it fit with a bit of green tape. Its own bit of tape, maybe. I'm not sure I can even reach that, but let's imagine we got that round there and said, that sort of connects up, don't it? Oh yeah. Now what have we got? Oh yes, we've got this one here. That's the one we want. So we're going to chop that little fella off. This one's going to come out. I think I'll just have a quick idea while I'm there. Let's just let's try and hoik this one out and drop that on there, since we seem to be able to have got this out without pulling the next tone out of the way as well. I'll come back to tighten that up, but that's just holding it out of the way. So now we've got to get this lead here, this hot lead through there, and then we need to get the sheath onto the pot here. So there's not a lot of, it's a bit mucky, frankly. Let's just push that in there, out of the way. What was moving? Oh, that, okay. You sit there, you sit there. Yeah, so not the bestest of all little undertakings here now. So we'll come back to that, leave that to one side. So we've got to get, this is a bit, it's supposed to be insulating to keep this away from, keep the hot part signal away from the ground part. So let's see if we can get this through here, and then we can walk backwards to try and join the braid to the pot. Not easy in this situation. Where are my grabby hands? I think I'd find them in here, wouldn't you? Oh, there they are. Right, got my little rubber feet on there. First, rubber feet. Let's try and hold this somewhere. Not very straightforward, I'm afraid. It's not easy. It's not easy. Okay, probably the worst view in the world, but so to get me the best possible run at this, I think I will. I've got a big spade-like soldering iron here, so it'll get rid of a lot of. I'll get rid of a lot of soldering in one go. So I'll probably attack that there. Come on. Right, out comes the spare thing. And what we've got to be able to do is fit this little thing. Really, it wants to come from the back side. And this needs to get into there, but that could also be loose. So we could run the two together. So if I just take off this one as well. Right, that's the two that have got to go into one place, and they can come at it from the same side. And what I'll try and do first of all is get this out of the way for a second. Thank you. Get some heat under there and soak out the solder. Not quite pulled it all out, but nearly. Come on. Right, hole is revealed. So the idea is this little delicate little live wire is going to go in there, and so has this little wire. Neither of them are as long as you really want them to be. And that one doesn't stick up positively through the hool. Ugh, come on. Thank you. Right, 2 bits through the hole. Right, solder. Who would be a 335 or an Epiphone Dot wiring installer, apart from, unless you were a small Vietnamese child with minuscule fingers or some such? That is those two swooshed together. Now the bit we got to do next, once that's cooled down, is now we have to get this little chap here, basically, I don't know how I'm going to hold this down, this little blob onto there. So I kind of want that to press down. No, it's nothing's going to hold it together, is it? How am I going to drop that onto there? You get out of the way. Well, I can get a load of solder onto the core, onto the sheathing, I should say. Thankfully, I've got quite an odd iron. It's really struggling to heat this braid up. Oh, I hate this. I hate this. There's a plastic wire too close to it for my liking. Maybe that's where I'm going to have to go on this point here. But chances are it's eventually going to melt the ground lug. Amazingly, I actually cannot get solder yet to stick to this wire. Well, maybe I have now. Come on. Can you see it? Can you see it? Can you see it? Because of course, lots of wires plus a big cluster of things means heat sink. Now I don't know for sure if this little fella is going to sit. No, it's not even sitting nicely. I can't stand this little wire being in the way. I've somehow got to get these two together. But I don't have. Anyway, what's the heat going on here? Oh, not hot enough by miles. Silly booger. Okay, things may improve from this point. So this is just a grounding wire here, but it's sort of annoying me that it's in the way. Now we're going to get a bit more heat. I've got to get this all squished together on the pot top. Come on, you can do it. Hiya, caramba. Right, we've lost that little ground connection, but that's fine. I can put that on separate, but we've got the pickup ground on instead. Happy. This little fella can go on in its own little place without too much kerfuffle. You see, just like that. And I can put a tiny little bit of little solder on the end there. And then I'm sort of working back to front here really, but never mind. And I'm going to come from this side over the top and squish him down into there and let him set. Okay. Now, you might think at this point, oh, fantastic, I'm just going to close the patient up and run for the hills. And then you think to yourself, wait a minute, every time I've ever done that in the past, I suffer. I find out the hard way that the ding-dang thing ain't bleeding working properly. So it makes much better sense to do a little test. So we've lost, oh yeah, we've lost the switch. Push pick up. So that must be, the switch must be luckily in the middle position. Hurrah! So that's good. I don't need to worry, it's working. Next thing, what we do now is we get this little thingy back on there, and then right, it probably did need, it looks like it did want to have that one out as well, but we can get away without that. So we can sort of go in this way, back down this way, back down to here. Oh no, that's not even the right place, is it? That's the switch. Ooh, you silly bumpkin. So we sort of shove that down in there, and then we're going to use our Vietnamese infant's hand to push that along where it belongs, somewhere along here. Hello. Hello. Oh yes, hello. Hello dear. Hello dearest. And then you come into it like so. Oh, nearly. Like so. Holy moly. Sort of find a good grip for that. At this point in time, I'm not hugely worried about where the wires are seating. I just want to kind of get them in place, and then I'll sort of look at it afterwards. So I said that I'd try and do it for no charge, but it was now what I didn't know now which way round is the damn switch. So like, bear with me. One moment, please. Of course, what we've got to do is make sure we know which way is which. Okay, so we know that the little thingies point backwards. The lugs point backwards. That's good. So now our job is to get this little doofer into there, like so. And line up our switch. Okay, so we've got some things to tighten up. The first one is going to be this switch here. Then I'm going to get a little tool out, which I'll need. So the first thing is, whilst keeping this in the plane that I want it, I've got to tighten up the switch here so it doesn't come loose again, but stays in the up and down familiar position, which is good. And then we put this little fella on top. Hurrah! Now we're going to use a little holding finger to do up the neck volume as tightly as we can without it moving or anything untoward, like so. And then same with the neck tone out here, which is actually quite very difficult to reach all of a sudden. This was easy. Right, one more thing. This is loose, so we use our special Stumac, got what it's called, the gripper, and we use this very carefully to tighten the jack whilst this is still in place. Quite a lot of tightening to do on there. Get a better grip. And then you go. So there are all our bits and bobs. It's tightened up. So then we come back with our knobs, and our labels can come off because we know what they are. And in a second I'm going to go for my brake to do the whatever that thing I said before was. What did I say it was? I said it was polishing and sanding. That's what I said. And I shall do that off camera whilst having a drink and listen to some radio or something. So squeezing on our knobs with the noughts all in the same plane. It was quite loose, but it's on. Okay, so now just one last thing. We are young. So we've got these long. We've got rusty things here, and we've got thinner ones here. I think we'll go with the thinner ones. They're longer, but they're clean. Let's see if they just bite with the extra bit of length, because otherwise, does that feel good? Yeah, that feels good. I've got quite a few of these, so we use them on both sets. Yep. So there we have it, changed. Hello. Okay. Now, if you're brand new to guitar wiring and stuff like that, that can be an extremely frightening prospect, getting under the hood. And like I say, the things that will catch you out as a novice are going to be things like accidentally overstressing and breaking a wire while moving things around. You know, so you're up against not only the sort of logistics of which wire is which and what do I have to replace with what in order to make this work, but on top of it all, you've got the handling issues, which means you could very, very quickly break something and be basically stuck without knowing what's not working, and that's the worst bit of the whole thing. Now these are too long for this short front pickup ring, but it only goes straight through into a hollow space, so I don't think there's any real reason why not to use them. It's just overkill, but you can see they go down in there okay. So they're just much cleaner and newer looking than we started with. I got rid of the rusty ones. Yes, wiring and semi-acoustics, or hollow-bodied. Marriage made in hell. So what we've had there was we had the pickup went. The neck pickup went to the volume there. The bridge must have gone round to a bit further down. That's right, and then back out to the switch. Okay, that's me making it more complicated in my head than it needs to be. Nothing new there. Okay. I've got, looking at this fingerboard, it's looking a bit faded with age, so I might try and put some of the famous Monty's wax on it in a minute during the downtime. See this? I also recharged my my battery. We've been 1.25 hours already, so yeah, I'll put some stuff on there, see if I can darken it a little bit. All right, I'm gonna stop, recharge, and come back when I'm ready to put strings on, and we'll just have to wait for a nickel bridge to arrive. See you in a bit. Here we are, back Ooh, it's storming out there. Here we are, back on with the old bridge temporarily. I've ordered one. Amazingly, it'll be here on Sunday. So if Tom wants to delay it to Sunday evening, we can have that fitted, or perhaps Monday would be better because that gives me a chance to drill. Even this one is barely fits on these posts. Can you believe that? So it's a very, very intolerant type tolerance. Okay, so we've polished out, everything's clean. What's it's back on, tuner's back on. Wipe down dust. Still plenty of dust around, but anyway. So now it's time to fit the strings, which are going to be 942s requested for this. So here we go. Thread them through and on we go. This is the last 942s I've got, so it's another thing on the list that I got to order. Anyway, so I'll just feed all these through and over the loose saddles, which are liable to run off anywhere at any moment. Crazy, I know. So Tom, just a little thing to point out here. Setting up the guitar and doing the fret leveling the way I've done gives you the lowest possible action without buzzes and chokes, and it makes it very light to play at both ends, so down at the nut and up at the top end here. That's why people who like low actions prefer low actions, but it's not to everyone's taste. Anyway, but the point is, the setup work is to make it play better. The setup work to make it stay in tune better is funnily enough, doesn't have anything to do with your tuners, but it has to do with the condition, or the condition of your nut and the nut slots, and also the amount of slack, unreleased slack in your strings. So we've done the nut already, which is why I've chosen the adjustable nut, because I know how it performs and it gives great tuning stability, especially on guitars like this. So we've taken care of that. I know that the first fret action is set really low because that's what we used the adjustable nut for. You have the ability to do that. So what I'm just going to do now is I'm going to put the strings on, and I'm going to, because we're using an adjustable nut with the top part technically is removable, so it could come off. So I like to, when I take the strings off with this kind of nut in place, I recommend you take off from the outside inwards and then remove the D and the G last, and then in reverse, when you come to string up again like we're doing now, you start with the D and the G. So the way I do this is we go all the way through till it's taut, make sure it's seated everywhere it needs to be seated, and then I grab it at the first fret and I pull it back to the second fret and start winding. And the idea is I wind and I hold this string so it's not going anywhere. It's taut here, taut tight here, and tight at the back. And as I wind it on, I make sure this loose bit of string goes under the tight held string first time round. And then as it comes round the second time, I push the held string underneath the loose string, which I also pull up to get it out of the way. And I make sure that as it comes to tighten up in its correct groove, it does so underneath the loose bit, and then we can be ready to cut that loose bit off so it's out of the way and it's nice and tidy. And that is all the extra string you need on the thingy, the post. So first of all, we're making sure that we've got as little material, a little string as possible going around the post, but we have to have enough to grip, but it only requires that process that I've just showed you there. So if we do it again here, we hold it taut, come up to the end, pull it back one fret. Now this time I have to rejig my hands, and we go over and we hold it and we guide it over the loose string first time, and I'm using different pressures on my thumb here, but keeping it taut, yank up the loose string, and this time we go underneath the loose string, and so we've kind of achieved a little lock off, and then as it comes round we can cut off the excess there. Right, so that's the first two in, and they're holding down the top of the nut so it can't go anywhere. So then you can do the rest either side. But so the important thing is, when you want to think of tuning stability, it's 50% the condition, material of your nut and the way the slots are cut and the height of the strings over the first fret. Get all of that right, which we've done with this adjustable nut. That's half of your tuning stability taken care of. The other half is what we're going to do in a minute, which is stretching out all of the unreleased slack in your strings. And almost all of us almost ignore that at our cost. In other words, we don't pay it enough attention. We just want to get on and play. And as a result of that, we suffer from the strings going out of tune more than they need to. So the thing about this 50-50 equation, half the nut and half the unreleased slack in the strings, is if you get the nut right but you don't remove all the unreleased slack, you'll still go out of tune. And if you do get the, I can't remember which way around I just said it, if you get the nut right but don't get rid of the slack, you'll go out of tune. And if you don't get the nut right but you do get rid of all your slack, you'll still go out of tune. So you have to get both parts of it done properly in order to stay in tune. But once you have done both sides of that equation, then you'll find that your guitar will stay in tune. And a guitar that's pretty much always in tune when I come to pick it up, and which goes into tune really quickly and doesn't give me any hassle, doesn't seem to play sharp when I play cowboy chords down here, and all of the, these bloody saddles, man, they are falling all over the place. Anyway, yeah, so what? Sorry, this bridge is pretty lousy. It's falling apart. Yeah, a guitar that stays in tune all the time is one that you'll pick up and go back to all the time as well. So it's so important to get the tuning stability right. It's vital if you're playing with other people. It can be a really depressing experience for other musicians if you're not on top of your guitar staying in tune. And you know, a lot of people, I play with loads of people who are never quite in tune, and it's horrible. Doesn't matter, almost doesn't matter how fantastic a guitarist they might be. If they're out of tune, I don't want to hear it. And it's a painful mess. And a lot of people, one of the things that tells you when your nut is not cut right and your first fret action's too high. And when your first fret action's too high, notes played down near the nut tend to go sharp. But you don't necessarily know that that's what's happening. To you it seems like all you sometimes can experience is that you tune the guitar up and then you play some chords and it doesn't sound like it's in tune. So to you it sounds like a tuning problem, and it's really annoying because we typically think we haven't tuned it right, so we go back to it and we retune it again, and we use the electronic tuner this time, and we go through it all again and it sounds like it's perfectly in tune, and then we go and play a nice open chord, a D chord typically, and then suddenly it's no longer in tune, or it sounds like it's out of tune, and we basically don't want to play it. So I'm just giving all these strings a bit of a yank that I've put on. Make sure they're all seated nicely. And then what I'll do is I'll tune up. Again, you have to be very careful with this bridge if we carry on using it, which hopefully we won't, because these saddles are going to drop out at the first opportunity. It's a bit of a silly design. There's no retainer. Okay, so we're now in tune there for a second. I'm just going to check the first fret action. Just going to raise it a tiny little fraction there, a tiny bit there. That's good. Now, this is what you now need to do. What have we run out of now? Oh, this blasted, stupid effing. Right, I'm going to try and record again, but frankly, Scarlett, I don't know how long this will last. Anyway, we're recording on the overhead one, which we'll have to use. Okay, so what we now need to do to get the slack out of the strings is we need to stretch them individually between thumb and forefinger. Why can't I trust this phone? I really could do with a camera that's capable of recording a whole session in good quality. Sometimes it just has a mind of its own and it just switches off and it doesn't tell me why. We just lose however much we lose. So anyway, look, I'm squeezing between thumb and forefinger to stretch the strings, and what you'll notice straight away is from a new set of strings, doing this will put the guitar straight out of tune, which is good, right? It's not that your guitar is crap or the tuners are winding backwards. What you're hearing is the shedding of the unreleased slack that will carry on putting your guitar out of tune. Well, thanks for recording now. See how much out of tune that was? So if you imagine it, each string holds a certain amount of slack needing releasing, and imagine it only takes one of those strings to release a tiny fraction of the amount of detuning you heard just then. Only a fraction of that detuning on one string will make your guitar sound like it's out of tune. So there's a ton of detuning waiting to happen unless you do this and stretch it out deliberately yourself. So it could take you half an hour to do this properly. 10 gauges and above, you don't have to worry about being too rough. You can pretty much squeeze away. With 9s and 8s, you've got to be a little bit careful with the high E, especially if you haven't got another set like I haven't right now. Okay, so, oh, now you're still running. Well, thank you so much. I keep dreaming of a better camera. I don't know. I keep looking at things like those little, what do they call them? DJI pocket stuff, you know, but that's not really any good for what I'm doing. I just like the look of them. We're close to being stable. We're stable. There we have it. So that's all good in terms of tuning stability now. So that took about 3 big stretches, 3 or 4 big stretches. I'm just got some tape residue on there just to get off. So now the only thing we've got left to do is to check the intonation, assuming we're going to leave this what do you call it, bridge in place, even if I'd prefer to change it out for a different one. So just try. Just make sure everything works. This is the Gibson pickup. I'm just going to check the relief on here. It's still very little. Okay, so that's everything's playing, which is good. I'm going to take this, put it into the tuner, and we're going to, I don't even know what I'm zoomed in at. Oh, let's zoom out. Hello, something like that. Don't trust that camera anymore. So what I'm going to do is, no, what's in the way? Oh yeah, that's no good, is it? The pickups are in the way. Lower them down, I tell you. Don't want it dropping out. That's the one thing we don't want happening. Sharp, baby. Right, so that is pretty sharp, and if it doesn't really give us the adjustment we need, we'll just have to wait for the it's catching on this string. I could do without that. So we don't have a lot of room here. This is pretty lousy. So, pain in the absolute backside. So if I just now slack off these strings, I'm going to have to turn around all of these saddles to even get intonated. This tuner is a bit loose. Let's tighten that up a bit. Right, so we're going to need to spin this round. So we take this out of here, undo the little thing, take it right out. I mean, this is the easy bit, thankfully, because it doesn't have the bleeding clips in it and the springs, but so this bit is actually easier. Normally this would be quite a nightmare, but as it happens we can take this right out and I can drop that back in with the saddle now as far to the back realistically as is possible. The problem with this is if we don't get this in tune now, or sorry, intonated, then we're going to need to wait for the replacement. Okay, we're just about on there. In fact, we can push it a tiny bit the other way because we're a smidgen long now. So that's okay, but we have to now take out this one, turn it round. We're just marginal, it's barely going to intonate. So it still would like, it would be better having a bit more intonation travel, which is what you get on those kind of more modern roller saddles, roller bridges. But this should be on target, and then spin this one round as well. Reverse the Thank you. As to why these things ever had two different ways round is a bit anyone's guess, but so this needs to be kind of up against the wall, and down like that. So there's our three. Now these are going to be quite a lot out of sequence now. They're going to be far too sharp. So having had to slack this off now, I'm now going to drag all these back to where they should be in the standard stagger pattern, which is there, and here, and here, like so. Like so. Right. And then we sort of gently bring these all back up to pitch, tighten them up. And then we tune up. Fraction long. It's not quite telling me the truth here. I mean, there is a tilt already on the what's it itself, so it could be that these actually end up being a bit straighter. We'll try that, because most of the compensation work is done by the tilt of the bridge itself. And that's playing a little bit long now. Let's go back a bit. We'll get there. That's long. It's just lying to me, this thing. We'll get there. I promise we'll get there. Yes. No. Yes. Tiny bit long. Tiny bit long. Shove that forward a tiny bit. Eep, eep, eep. Do what you're told. Do as you're told. Should be about right. Nearly there. Blimey, it's a bit windy out there. Okay. Good, right, that's that. We'll leave it there. And we'll see if this new bridge arrives. And if it arrives, we will, I will, what did we say? We've got things to do tomorrow and the day after. So, no, I will come up and get the drill tomorrow if necessary. So I shan't worry about it now is what I'm trying to say. So there we have it. Sorry for the drawn out business at the end there. New custom made adjustable Tusq nut with accompanying little hex key for adjusting. The nice thing about that is just set it as low as your playing style allows. There's no fixed rule, just you know, on the basis that the lower it is, the less out of tune it's going to go when you squeeze the note. So you want it quite low, and if you can get it really low and it plays well with your playing style, then that's great, and that's how you set it. That's what I would advise. Gibson pickup in the neck position, wrong thing, need a nickel bridge, ordered, it's coming, rollers, but actually this is a correct intonation now for this bridge, which is great. It wasn't intonated before, it was miles off, and we've changed the wiring over for this new pickup, which is, I've set it quite low to begin with, but you can come up with that. So that's all done, all cleaned up as well. So a lovely kind of John Lennon-y style beastie. Can't go wrong. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope that was vaguely interesting along the way, and look forward to seeing you soon. Apologies for the camera conking out. Why it's working now, I have no idea. Maybe I didn't have it running at all. We did a whole 2 hours, didn't we? Yeah, we did, didn't we? Oh well. We've got it all on the old trusty Sony anyway, so well done, Sony.